What's up, guys? Welcome back. In today's episode, we are still working on the 1960 Auto Union 1000 SP. In the last episode, we finally cut the bottom portion of the rocker panels out. We took about an inch of the sills out to get this thing down just a little bit more, to basically bring the front and rear bumpers a little bit lower to the ground since the sills underneath the doors were so thick. So it was a ton of work for the little bit of drop we got, but I really wanted to get that last 3/4 of an inch to an inch of drop. Now, I read all of your comments in the previous video, and I did want to go to this body line right here. I did want to take the entire lower portion of the sill out, but some of you guys may remember we don't have the overhead height. We don't have any room left. The tires are almost touching the original parcel shelf that basically contains the side glass and the rear window. But in this episode, we're gonna be working on seats. This is something that I've been toiling with for a long time now. I wasn't sure if I wanted to build something myself or just find something cool that would fit in the car. I've talked about using the rear bucket seats out of my Euro 635 CSI. I thought that that would really be a cool seat to put in this car since they were a rear bucket seat that had no real business being a front seat in a car, but they were small, heavily bolstered little buckets. And I thought they'd work really cool in this car. But the more I test fit them and the more I looked at building a frame and seat bracket system to mount them in the car, their molded plastic body that protrudes way off the back of the seat, it was too bulky to go in this car. So I've kind of abandoned that idea for now. We'll put that on the back burner. But I've decided to tackle building my own bomber seats, especially since we now have the CNC plasma table here in the shop. I have not done any of this before, so this will be a learning process for me, and I'm bringing you guys along on that learning process. So my inspiration for building these bomber seats are similar to the ones that I have here in the Corvair. I do have some bomber seats in the BMW 700 as well. You guys have seen those. But these ones here were a seat that I bought back in 2013 when my father and I were building this car. And I believe these were from a company called Rotten Leonard. But these are just sheets of aluminum that have been CNC cut. They've got some bead rolling on them. And in the middle and on the back is just upholstered plywood. This is kind of what I'm going off of. I'm gonna measure these width-wise, height-wise. I'm gonna try to replicate the dimensions at least and then make my own design for the actual shape. I've already been to the steel yard and picked up a sheet of 14 gauge. Oh, actually, this is not 14 gauge. This is 080. I almost forgot about that. So this is a little thicker than I wanted to use for this project, but my local steel yard had a smoking deal going on for 4x8 sheets of 080 aluminum. I think it was like 70 bucks for a 4x8 sheet. But I've already pulled my PrimeWeld Cut 50 plasma cutter out and cut that in half, so at least we could fit it here in the shop easier. Okay, so we're over at the laser machine computer, and I've kind of already started a preliminary design. Basically what you're seeing here are the pieces that I will fold over that will mount the wood for the back piece and the wood for the bottom piece, right? All right, well, I have a design kind of sketched together. These dashes here will be just straight slit cuts because that's where I'll make my bend. And I'm just gonna put some relief cuts in there to make it easier to bend since I don't have a really good metal brake. I just have a vise mounted metal brake. So making some slits to help with material and location to make the bend. This here is our seatbelt loop. I literally just threw that there. Just kind of threw it there. So we'll see if it's anywhere near what I want. I've got some poster board in the machine. Not quite wide enough for what we're doing, but extended it a little bit so we can get the full seat side cut out of this poster board. Once I get it cut out, we'll use the sides of the bomber seats in the Corvair as kind of like our template, just because I really like those seats. I like the seating position in them, so I want to emulate that angle as best I can. Hot off the press. All right, got the bottoms and the sides bent over. Oh wow, our seatbelt slot almost lines up perfectly. That's actually not bad. I'm pretty happy with that. You know, I think I like this. I think I am brave enough to move this to aluminum on the CNC plasma table, I think. Okay, so before we start cutting anything on the plasma table, I had cleaned out the water table back a while ago and hadn't put any more water in it. I hadn't mixed anything yet. So off camera, I just mixed up some Sterling Cool. It's like a 20-to-1 gallon mixture, and just got the water table filled. I don't have a pump and drain system set up under this thing yet. I'd really like to. That way I can just drain it and then refill it and it doesn't evaporate, because that's ultimately what happened. There was a month or two where I didn't use it and a lot of the water evaporated, and it is ultimately wasting your material that you mix with the water, so you know, it inhibits rust and all that. All right, so I got the aluminum on the table and just did a test cut with this like 3/4 of an inch circular DXF file, just to make sure. I mean, this is the first time we've ever cut aluminum with this table, but also with the PrimeWeld Cut 60. So got my settings just right, went to the owner's manual. If you have a PrimeWeld Cut 60, in the back of the owner's manual gives you a reference chart of all your PSIs, amperage for what thickness materials and what type of materials. We're running at about 35 amps and about 55 PSI. Got my ground directly to the aluminum, not to the table. Usually I just have it clamped to a slat on the table when I'm cutting steel. I think we are ready. That is a really clean cut. Man, I think we're ready, guys. Okay, we ready to do this? Well, guys, that's the first piece cut for our future bomber seats. Pretty stoked on that. Okay, guys, next morning, and I think I'm going to put some bends into this first side that we cut, just in case there's a design change we need to make before we waste another big piece of this aluminum. I mentioned previously that I don't have a good metal brake here. So here we are with the 2-piece of angle iron in the vise method. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Got our mount holes on the back and on the bottom. Oh boy. Well, I had a bit of a problem right at the end of the operation. We stopped arcing here and just ruined that line. Upon further investigation, I think I was well overdue to replace my tip. I feel like I just replaced the tip, but this thing is just cooked. Look at this. Just cooked. So, got a new tip going in, new nozzle. That's what they're supposed to look like. All right, new tip is in. And unfortunately, we've ruined this whole section of aluminum. All right, here we go. No way. Well, I am just not catching a break here. We have this one mess up and we're ready to go on the next one. It was nested properly. We had enough material to cut it out right here. We had a tip up, and when it went to its next point to start arcing, caught the tip up and just moved the whole sheet with it. So now we've lost where we originally were, so we can't recut using this hole because there'd be no way to tell how to move this sheet back into location perfectly. What a dumb move! I forgot to re-ground the sheet. There's literally no ground. I just turned the sheet around and forgot to... Alright. Okay. We're grounded. Alright. That was a super clean cut. And it should be. We have a brand new tip and nozzle in that torch. Oh, nice. I like it. Well, that's the second side to our driver's seat, or passenger seat. I've got one of each side done now. All right, guys, well, we have all four sides of the two seats done. Everything's bent. I went over everything with a flap wheel to just kind of like clean it up, give it that brushed look. We have yet to finish what I want to do on the sides, obviously. What we'll do now is we'll move on to the wood aspect, the bottoms and the backrests, essentially. So now I just have to figure out how wide I want these to be. I might just replicate how wide the Corvair seats are, as long as they'll fit in the Auto Union without being too crowded. There's no tunnel in the Corvair, and there's a tunnel in the Auto Union because of the beetle pan. Now, the Corvair is much wider than the 1000 SP, but they are pretty comfortable. But I'm really stoked on these. First time working with aluminum with the CNC plasma table, and without a metal brake, I feel like we did an okay job. All right, so just got back from running some errands and picked up a 4x4 sheet of 3/4 inch plywood. I know that buying a full 4x8 foot sheet is probably cheaper, but I am running out of storage space here. All right, guys, we have the wood pieces all cut. We've got our bottoms and our backrests. After cutting them, just took the orbital sander and went around their edges to just smooth everything out, bevel the edges. It'll make it easier for wrapping our upholstery over the foam. I also stopped by the hardware store and picked up some wood nut certs, so we'll be able to just thread bolts in and not have to worry about self-tappers and threads ultimately ripping out of wood at some point. All right, so here's the first look at the seat with just bare plywood in it. We have our nutserts. They're just a 1/4 nutsert. So I've got some 3/4 inch, 1/4 machine screws that come up through the bottom, pulling the nutserts into the wood. And although we still have a few steps to go to make these things look exactly the way I want them to, this is kind of crazy. I know it's pretty simple, but I've never done this before. And designing these from scratch in CAD with no formal CAD training, I'm really, really stoked on them. I really am. So I'm hoping that the overall vision for these really kind of comes together, and I'm as stoked with the finished product as I am so far halfway through it. All right, so both seats are assembled, all holes are drilled, all nutserts are installed, bolts are in. So let's take them back apart now, and we'll start working on upholstery. Now this is the part of the project that's totally out of my realm, since I haven't really done anything like this before. This is literally as basic as it gets. This is upholstery 101. So go easy on me. First time. So here is the foam I'm planning on using on the backrest and the bottoms of the seats. It's a little thicker than I remember it, but honestly, I don't think I should have gone any thinner, because once you're sitting on it, it's going to compress quite a bit. So I have enough to do the bottoms, both bottoms and both backs. And then this is what we're going to use to cover them or wrap them with. Now, I know a lot of you guys know that I do a lot of laser cutting and laser engraving. And a lot of that is with leather. I make leather key rings, leather hat and shirt patches for other companies. So even if you're watching this, I'd gladly make your company some leather key rings like these, and mostly in black. I mostly deal with a black leather, but we've got tan leather key rings. What else we got sitting right here? I work with black leather a lot too, like this one here that I made for the Overcrest Rally in Utah. All laser cut, laser engraved from genuine leather. So I say this because I really wanted to make the covers out of genuine leather. I don't stock any leather that's thin enough to really stretch and wrap over that foam, wrap around the backside of those plywood pieces and staple them down. And not knowing how good these were going to come out, I figured I'd do type 1 out of pleather, which is thin. This is super stretchy. So this is what I'm going to make version 1 of the seats with. If this goes surprisingly well, I'll look at making some different seats later on in the future. Okay guys, taking a quick break from working on the seats to show you what I just got delivered. I finally thought it was time to buy a proper sized toolbox. I've been working out of that little 4-foot one ever since I moved out of my father's shop and started doing everything on my own out of my own space. This is a 72-inch 6-foot soft close box, and I've been working out of this 4-foot box for the last 5 years now with soft close drawers, and this thing is just a great box. But just wanted to show you guys a new piece of the shop, and I am super excited about it. Okay, seat bottom number 1 is done. I know that the material I got probably wasn't the best, and it probably wasn't the best to be packaged either, because there's some indents where it was folded over. For my first go around, I mean, I'm really not that upset about it. The corners were what I was stressing about the most. Check that out. That is starting to look like a seat. Well, we have one seat done, upholstered, and bolted in. I am certainly not an upholsterer. The back here, I am going to cut a piece of aluminum to cover all of this, so you won't see the wood, you won't see the staples, you won't see any of the upholstery. Be a matching back to the back of the sides here. Well, all right, guys, we have both seats assembled. Now, I did make kind of a grave mistake on this one. When I drilled the holes in the plywood and installed the nutserts to line up to the mounting holes on our aluminum sides, I didn't take into account that the cushions would actually interfere with each other. So what I did when I upholstered them was I moved the foam up a ways. So down here was just the plywood with the upholstery over it, and the cushions didn't really kind of fight each other. On this side, I accidentally switched it. I accidentally beveled this one so it would notch into the bottom here. Unfortunately, when I upholstered it, I did it upside down. So now the cushions are kind of pushing against each other on this seat. And up here is our bevel that was supposed to be tucked into the bottom. The other thing I want to do before we finish this episode and to kind of finish these seats off is I want to work on some overlays on the sides. Let's go to the laser machine and I'll show you guys what I'm thinking there. All right, Josh, tell us what on earth is going on.
Oh boy.
And why you're here.
About 3-ish months ago, I decided to watch one of my favorite movies, Smokey and the Bandit. And at the same time, I had a black R32 Mark IV that I wanted to do something with and have a reason to do something with. So as that movie was playing, I think it was on the computer, it was somewhat on the background, I was just like, what if we drove to Texarkana?
Like they do in the movie.
Like they do in the movie.
Yeah.
So in the movie, they drive from Atlanta, Georgia to Texarkana. And I modified the route a little bit so we could leave from East Providence, Rhode Island.
A little farther away than Atlanta.
A bit further, yeah. We got the R32 prepped, tried to make it bandit-like, if you will.
Yep.
Give it some essence of the Trans Am.
And you're on your way back now.
We're on our way back,
You've made it to Texarkana.
We made it to Texarkana. That was priority number one. We got there, we camped out, stood in a shelter, which was awesome. We're going to film some stuff now, and then we're going to continue our journey.
Well, I'm really stoked you guys stopped by, even though it's a quick in and out
thing.
No,
it's quick, but it was great to see you. Great to check out the shop.
It's been same as you and Brian probably. It's been 4 years.
Yeah.
Probably. I've been down here 3 now. They're going to shoot for a little bit here, and then we're going to grab coffee before they hit the road home. Okay, guys, 2 days later, I've been dealing with a ton of issues here in the shop. So this is what I'm thinking right here. This is a 2-color, 16th inch thick acrylic, but they have an almond surface that engraves black, and it just so happens to match really well with the colors of the Auto Union. Interior wise, it just fits. All right, guys, we have both seats done for now. I kind of can't believe where we started. I mean, literally from nothing. A sheet of aluminum and a sheet of plywood. And for now, I'm not going to cut a sheet of aluminum for the backs because if these end up being a little too narrow for comfort, I'll end up widening them. And if I widen them, I ultimately have to remake the wood pieces, foam, and everything. And if I do that, I may go with a slimmer foam, so the bolsters, the sides essentially, will sit up above you a little bit more. You know, who knows? We haven't even spent any time in these things yet. These might settle. But this gets us figuring out where the pedal cluster needs to go, because I need to custom build a pedal cluster in this car. Because if you guys haven't seen the previous episodes, the way the body sits over the Volkswagen Beetle chassis, the pedal cluster on the Beetle chassis mounts in the engine bay of the Auto Union now, essentially. So there's no way you can reach the pedals. I have to custom build something in a custom location. And to do that, I need to be able to sit in the car. So from here, I'm gonna have to build a custom frame to go under these seats and mount to them, and mount to our slider rails that we're gonna ultimately mount to the floor of the Beetle Pan, so we can actually slide these back and forth to get behind them. So before we go, let's get them in the car. I'll get them just up on some blocks so we get them angled where we want them, and I'll get seated in the car and see how we like them. Man, oh man, am I liking this. I think maybe I'm just liking the fact that there's seats in the car, and it looks like it's becoming an actual car that you can get in and drive. I'm really digging this. I love the look, and I really do like the color of that acrylic on the sides of the seats. Wow, it's not terrible. It's not terrible. I think thinner foam would help me sit back into the seat more, so I feel like I've got more support under my thighs. Or we make some attached support like the old Recaros that had the little crank that would bring out support for like your knees and your calf area. Maybe we end up getting creative and making some sort of support that would like flip out or something. I don't know. All I know is this is like better than I expected for being a scratch-built seat. Arm hang feels good. 12 o'clock on the steering wheel feels good. Visibility seems pretty good. And if you have to, you can scoot back a little bit. I've got visibility over the hood. Boy, I dig it, guys. I like it. And what this will do now is this will allow me to figure out where on earth I'm going to put pedals. But from this point, I'll be able to work on rails and a mounting system so these seats can get mounted. And then I can work on where the pedals are going to go. Golly. Well, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. We're going to make some changes to them, but I'm super happy with the process. I learned a lot. I tried a bunch of new things. We cut aluminum on the table for the first time, designed seats for the first time, upholstered some plywood for the first time, although there's plenty of room for improvement there. Well, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching and for all of your support. If you want to support the channel and this shop in a larger way, LudwicksGarage.com. The web store link is in the video's description below. I still have some hoodies, t-shirts, and a few other things still on the web store from the last drop. But at the very least, please consider subscribing to the channel. It's absolutely free and it helps the channel grow in a massive way. Hit the notification bell or leave a comment on this video. Let me know what you guys think about the seats. Are you an upholsterer? How would you do this? Leave some tips and tricks down in the comments below because I'm going to be doing these again to just revise them at some point. Thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next episode.